Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first session of the 2026 Digital Classicist Seminar online. For those who are on YouTube, please free to say hi whenever in the chat and also ask any kind of questions. We'll make sure that we reply to them at the end of the paper. So today's speaker is Sarah Rohde, a PhD student from the Warburg Institute of the University of London, and she will today present a paper titled Classical Antiquity in Video Games, Combining Visual, Narrative, and Interactive Elements. The floor is yours, Sarah.
Thank you, Maxim. Thank you, Gabriel, for inviting me, and thank you to everyone that organized the Digital Classicist Seminar and everyone that's following. So I'll present today on my thesis. So I will give you a kind of a broad overview of what I'm doing, my methodology, what I'm studying. So my topic, as Maxim just said, is classical antiquity in video games, combining visual narrative and interactive element. And I'll first start by saying that why should we study video game? I'll just give a very brief reason because I'm sure a lot of you are very interested in the subject. There is around 3.5 billion active gamers in the world, which is around a bit less than half the world population. So obviously a lot of people are interacting with this media, which makes it something that will actually give, obviously, an idea of the history to the people. And the industry of the video game, in terms of revenue, generates almost double the film and music industry combined. So it's a big industry and it exists in the world.
Sorry, Sarah, I think you're not sharing your slides.
Again?
Yeah, kind of.
Why does it stop then?
Yeah.
Because I don't interact with it.
Good question.
Sorry.
No. And it.
I can.
Yes, and please press the hide button,
hide one.
which is just right here. Yep.
Okay. So that was the title. And that was the numbers. So my thesis, my research question of the whole thesis is how the need for narrative, the representation of images, and the interactive nature of video game displays antiquity in a game. Okay.
It's gone again.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, we'll try again then.
Does it work?
It does.
Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, let's see.
Whatever you're seeing up here is what people on YouTube are seeing.
Yes. Yeah. And so I was saying that my thesis look at the interconnection between those three ideas of the need for narrative, the images, and the interactive nature of video games. So I'll also look at the gameplay, which is something that hasn't been looked at as much right now. I kind of go through four main topics: the importance of previous tradition, especially the filmic tradition, obviously, the influence of and on the gameplay of having history in the setting in any way, shape, or form, the choice of setting. So why do you choose Rome? Why do you choose Greece? Why do you choose to have things that look like classical antiquity in your games? And obviously themes and symbolism that come in video games. So if I change it, yes, okay. So very broad literature review, very, very broad. I look obviously at reception history, I look at reception of the classics, and obviously I look at reception in video game, especially of classical antiquity. The Bloomsbury collection is really useful. I also look at video game theory through the idea of mostly game design, so how do they make the game? And I'll present it a bit later, but I use grounded theory to make my own research. Also, I mentioned some blogs because they're really important in the field. This is where a lot of the research, the new research is coming through. And also, obviously, I should mention YouTube, Reddit, all of the fan wikis that are really useful when you work on any type of video games. So which video game did I choose for my thesis and for this topic today? I chose around 100 video game. I went through list and list of best games of all time, of the best game set in ancient world, of the best-selling video game. and also of the award show to kind of get an idea of what's popular and what's not, because it's also interesting to see what didn't work as well. To just give a very brief idea of the vocabulary I'll be using. So God games are games that where the player plays as an omnipotent force. So it could be a civilization, a leader, any type of thing that's not one individual. It's usually strategy game, simulation game, so where you play as like a civilization or a leader of a city. And hero-based game are where you play as individuals. It can be several people. It's more human scales, usually more adventure game, RPG, or action game. So I give just two brief examples with Age of Empire, which is a strategy game, and Asterisk game, where you can see that you play as one character. So my corpus, 100+ video game, from best-selling video game to less well-known game. Around a third of it is set in a Roman setting. It's usually more strategy game. A lot of simulation of gladiators in any shape or form. They are mostly historical. Roman mythology is almost absent from video game. A third of them are set in a Greek setting, so they are more what we call hero-based game, usually more centered around mythology, where actually Greek mythology is almost used as a fantasy setting. And a third of them, I choose to look at fantasy and sci-fi game, which have been kind of not really looked at yet, to kind of see where the reminiscence of antiquity come from, and also some of the fantasy world can be strongly inspired by Greek and Roman antiquity. So I was saying that I use grounded theory, which means that I usually go from the data to the analysis. So whenever I want to look at temples, for example, I go through my corpus, search all of the images of temples I can find, put them into a nice software, and then attach codes. So I go through an image, I look at things that are interesting. So the first one, I probably will say, it's a nice Parthenon, there are some colors. The second one, I'll say it's a ruined Parthenon, and there are almost no colors, and those kind of things will let me know differences, similarities, trend, and also kind of build my research around that. So today, I especially will look at how video games combine visual, narrative, and interactive elements to kind of give new visual codes or not. We'll see that a lot of them are actually codes that already exist in other media. So today, I'll separate my talk into two main parts. First, the classical aesthetic. So we'll look at the images, the decor, everything that looks classical. And the second part will be on the exploration of a virtual space. So how the players move in the space, how do they explore it, what will give them the incentive to actually go and look at the decor. So the first part, I'll look at classical settings, then the images of antiquity, followed by the aesthetic of ruins, which are very important in games. So we'll start with Roman games, because in-game there is a difference between games that are set in Roman antiquity and in Greece. They're not considered the same civilization. So if you see here, you'll see that it's mostly strategy and simulation game. The first three images of those three are all from strategy games. So going back to the idea that the Roman Empire is, you know, like all around the conquest, the military conquest, especially the army. And Caesar is a bit more of a city simulator. So you're trying to build, great, I'll reshare it. You're trying to build your own city. And so obviously have a city that's functional, that's aesthetically pleasing. Is it working? Yes. Good. Okay, functional, aesthetically pleasing, and that's like also goes with the idea that the Roman are like very, okay, they're gone. Great. That are very organized. If I can share, maybe that'd be better. You. Okay. Let's hope it works. We're fine. So Civilization is a game franchise of a strategy game. So you're trying to conquer or to win the game by conquering the most territory, winning for like cultural domination. There is a few different types. In all of the franchise, the three civilizations that are always present are the Egyptian, the Greece through more Alexander the Great, so through Macedon more than through like what we call classical Greece, and the Roman, obviously, with mostly Julius Caesar. Trajan was in Civilization 6, so interesting change in the franchise. There is also, so I was talking about gladiatorial game. Some of the simulation are actually economical simulation, kind of sports simulation. So you're kind of handling your gladiator from a very distance where you're not fighting with them, but you're making them sure they have sponsor, making them win the fight. And why does he hate me? Okay. Okay. I can kind of multitask.
Very good.
Yay. Obviously, you also have some games that like to go through the spectacular gladiatorial combat. This is Rising of Rome, but it's kind of the exception more than the norm. For the Greek game, again, why?
We don't want you to present your
Yeah,
yourself.
I'm too interesting.
Maybe, I don't know if this will work with the screen, just scroll through the slides.
No. Should I? I can no. I mean, I can.
Yeah.
See if that works.
Okay. No, I can't have animation. You won't see how the images if you do that. So anyway, Greek setting, mostly mythological, as I just said. They like big, impressive creature. That's what also a lot of people know from ancient Greece from movie. It's mostly presented through a mythological angle. Immortal Phoenix Rising, or even God of War, as you can see. Even games that tend to say that they want to show an authentic view of ancient Greece, they usually have mythological element. This is Assassin's Creed, where they want to craft an authentic recreation of the Greek world. And you're still battling Medusa. It's expected for the players. They want it, and they will give it to you. There is exception. There is a few strategy games. There are not many of them. This is like Hegemony, when you can play in ancient Greece, and it's a strategy game, but it's again the exception. You also have, I'll try. You also have classical antiquity in later historical era. So Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is set in Renaissance Rome, and so you have ruins of antiquity. Similarly, for A Plague Tale: Innocence, which is in medieval France, and you end up in Roman ruins at the end. And they're also present in sci-fi games. So Overwatch, and Call of Duty Advanced Warfare are both games you play in a near future, and you have ruins of antiquity present in the game. And obviously also in fantasy setting, Kingdom Hearts, it's set in the Disney world of Hercules, so it's expected to see classical aesthetic. Legend Pokemon Arceus and Zelda Breath of the Wild, on the other hand, are set in kind of fantasy medieval Japan, so it's a bit more, let's say, unexpected to see classical building in the games, but they represent, the meaning that was attached to the ruins in Zelda and to the temple kind of went above the idea of classical setting, and they're kind of standing on their own now. So what is antiquity in video game? What's the classical aesthetic? It's white, it's marbled, as you can see, and it's mostly column and arches, very easy to represent in older games. So this game was made in '83, so very easy to do, just 3 nice white blocks. Column also quite easy. This game is from '88. And you can even see here, it's pretty much white marble, making it really representative, especially when you have several different worlds in a game. It's really striking to see one that's mostly white. The temple is very important. Colors are kind of starting to appear no more with the diffusion and of the idea that antiquity was not actually all white. It's still quite subdued, but it's starting to exist. And you can see that in games like Assassin's Creed Origins, when you go through Egypt, so the first images is Memphis. It's what you expect of Egypt. So mostly sandy color. The vegetation looks quite North African. And then you go to Cyrene, which is a Roman colony, and you have obviously the arena that I think was actually not built at the time of the game, if I'm not mistaken, that you can see is still very prominent, obviously. And so Rome, in terms of color, it's red, and mostly red, and red, and red everywhere. The roofs are red, the people are red, you have flowers that are red. It's an important color. It's been associated to Rome throughout history, so it's not very surprising. Greece, especially Athens, is mostly blue, which in my head makes sense. But then I realized that why would it be blue? I think there's a few reasons. The flag of Greece as blue, so I think that's one of the reasons. And obviously to distinguish from Rome or Sparta, that's also represented as red. So I think it's also kind of why Athens kind of ended up being blue. You can see even in Assassin's Creed, those two boats. And you have sometimes the orange and black. It's kind of rare, but it does happen. Apotheon is a game that's all based on this aesthetic. Antiquity is not only colors and marbles, it's also buildings, especially the arenas and the temple. For the arenas, in my corpus, half of the game have arenas. A third of them mention directly a Colosseum name, so here you have it in Zelda. A quarter of them are set in the Roman Empire, and 17 of them are in fantasy or sci-fi setting. So it's a type of building that's really present. The temple is also really present. On your other hand, you have it in more fantasy world. You have it in Tekken in the background when you go to Greece. You also have like temple-like building in Kingdom Hearts, and obviously in Assassin's Creed, it's an important building. You can even see it on the jacket of the game itself. It's also interesting to see how they kind of changed the design of this building. Here is the arena of Crocatopolis in Egypt. So it's kind of have a more Egyptian look, I guess. And this is the arena in this. So it's the game that went great. That came out after the one set in Egypt, but it's a prequel. So it's during the Peloponnesian War, and there is an arena in Greece during the Peloponnesian War, which is obviously not accurate, but it serves as kind of a gameplay reminder of the older one, and also because people, when they think classical antiquity, they think arena, and like even if it's not set in, it works okay in ancient Rome. So they do expect it, and it has more of like a piratey vibe because you're in a pirate cove. For the temple, Immortal Phoenix Rising has this Zeus temple at the top of a mountain, so near the skies. And God of War for the Temple of Poseidon is more of an underwater, weird kind of setting. So the idea of those buildings is also very important in the game. They kind of see as the epitome of the civilization. You see that in strategy game, where the strategy game, when you build a building, like it's an evolution. So you start with an arena, then you have the amphitheater, and then it doesn't matter which city you are in, you'll get the Colosseum if you have the sufficient level. Similarly, for the Pantheon, it's kind of the temple of temple, or the Colosseum again is the arena of arena. Here in Civilization, it's one of the wonders you can build. So it's kind of considered as important building. I'll try this. Great. Even in games, that are set in an era when there was not the Colosseum. You'll see the Colosseum. This is a Uchronia of Rome where Nero wasn't killed. So it's an older Nero, and you already have the Colosseum, which is obviously inaccurate. Similar here, you have the Colosseum when the game is taking place just after the assassination of Caesar. It's obviously very anachronistic, but it's such an important building to represent Rome that if you want to represent Rome, you represent the Colosseum. Okay. So here is Call of Duty. In Call of Duty, in Black Ops 4, you go back in time to, I think it's in Roman Egypt. So you're in an arena and you're battling zombie to prevent the sacrifice to 4 divinities that will bring a catastrophe. Those 4 divinities are Zeus, which is in a Roman arena a bit unexpected, but maybe with, let's say it's in Roman Egypt, why not? You have Odin, which is a bit less expected. You can clearly see here that there is a mix between all the mythology. Happens a lot in game that you play, and you have the Roman mythology, the Norse mythology, and it doesn't matter the timeline. And obviously you do all of this with a gun because you're in Call of Duty. The arena is then a building that's really present even in medieval fantasy. Here you have World of Warcraft, which has very different type of arena. You can win the title of Gladiator, so directly linking it to a title that was used obviously in the Roman time. Similar in Fire Emblem, which is also a medieval, and this arena here is called the Colosseum, I believe, in a game. You also have obviously games that are set as like you're a gladiator and you're fighting in a Colosseum. That's obviously very present. Okay. The Colosseum is also linked to obviously the idea of panem and circumstances, so to the idea of making the population happy in strategy game, and also to a tyrannical ruler that likes the game and like the bloody game, present in the Gladiator movie. Also in the Mortal Kombat franchise, this is, I think it's called Shao Kahn Colosseum. So you're battling in a Colosseum and is a tyrant of the old world. One idea that's not really present surrounding the arena is the Christian martyr. The image I just put is in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and it's not a representation of a Christian martyr, but it's the other piece that's playing in a Colosseum that you have to, I think, stop. I don't remember the plot line, but something like that. And so these are actors. So it does link back to the idea of Christian martyr, but you don't really, it's not that present in video games, kind of the exception. Reasons running that, I think video game wants to avoid any controversy with religion, so they don't tend to have much modern day religion in games. And also, I don't think most people want to play people that either are Christian martyr or that do Christian martyr. I think it's a bit of a blur line, so they avoid it. And now we go to my favorite part, which are the ruins. Ruins of classical antiquity are very present in, again, games that are set in historical era. So this is medieval England with the Viking conquest. You have Roman ruins present even in like the teasers. It was actually quite a big part of the promotion. I already see Assassin's Creed Brotherhood with the Renaissance Rome as the Colosseum, where you do a lot of the quest. Present also in Hades, which is a game set in the Greek underworld, a mythological game. And in Mario Kart, when you go to Athens, you go to the Parthenon in ruins. So they are very present in video game. They kind of bring a bit of a, like, let's say, dark vibe. You know, it's a bit darker. It's kind of ominous in the background. Even the character in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood says that the old ruins makes me nervous. So there's this idea linked to ruins that they are a bit scary. When you play a strategy game, the ruins are not scary though. So like the gameplay of this game, the genre really impact how they are viewed. Because here the ruins that you usually create or that your adversary create kind of tells you the state of your game. So are you winning? Are you losing? Depends if the ruins are yours or your adversary. So it's a very different way to see the ruins, for example. Talking about archaeology is also quite present as an aesthetic with like archaeological dig in a number of games. Also in some strategy game, you can have archaeologists that exist. Obviously, Tomb Raider, a big game franchise, not much in Rome. I think there's only one game when she goes to Rome for a bit. It's mostly more what's called exotic places. So Southeast Asia or like Latin America, it's mostly where you'll find the ruins in Tomb Raider. There are other ways to play with archaeology. So World of Warcraft, you can do archaeology to find artifact. Similarly in Animal Crossing. Oh no, my Animal Crossing slide. Okay. So in Animal Crossing, you can take up a fossil, not really classical usually. You can donate them to the museum or you can keep them for yourself. Depends what you prefer. And obviously, you also have this idea that the ruins are interesting to explore. It always does that. Like I did it 3 times and it works for like 10 minutes. Okay. Yes. So in Assassin's Creed, for example, they kind of want you to explore those ruins. So you have a Viking saying that, oh, the great Romans and the empire, giants of a forgotten age, because the ruins look so grand and so big. Similarly, obviously, in Zelda and Legend Pokemon Arceus, where they also are used to show that the worlds are old. So the ruins are, like in Legend Pokemon Arceus, there are some plot lines when you're kind of trying to look at things that were before, so like the kind of the antiquity of the game. So having the classical ruins really brings that idea. Again, in a land that's supposed to be kind of medieval Japan. Similarly, in Zelda Breath of the Wild, there is kind of two kind of ruins, and the classical one are like the more ancient civilization. Can you? Yay. You also have ruins in Antiquity. So if you're playing Hercules action game, you have ruins everywhere. So they kind of also are very present in Antiquity, in game set in Antiquity, because they are so associated to the classical aesthetic that they're kind of part of it. And they're also very strongly associated to the idea of conspiracy theory, especially in games. In The Forgotten City, you play in basically it's a ruined Roman city, and you're trying to understand what happens. And in the end, you understand that basically the ancient gods were aliens. So this is Hades. And similarly, in Assassin's Creed, Atlantis was the cradle of a very advanced technological civilization. All of those ideas are very present through ruins in games. And now that we've explored what you can find in games, we're going to see how you can find it, how is it represented, especially in game maps, which is really interesting, I think, to look at the layout of the ancient world, how people are like players are motivated to explore the world. And finally, we'll touch a bit on the changes that you can bring to the decor as a player or not. So first, the maps. A lot of them do use the ancient map aesthetic. I don't think it's especially classical. It's mostly historical map as a whole. Looks more almost Renaissance in some way. This one, the hegemony, looks more like a battle map you can find in a movie when like they're moving the pieces. My favorite one is the one in Hades. So this is the part you play, this part. And as you're trying to escape the underworld, it's kind of an inverted journey from Dante's in the Divine Comedy, and you can kind of flip the map of the Divine Comedy of of hell. I mean, they made great historical research, so I'm sure that's reference, but it's an interesting parallel. But game maps also need to be readable. The player is going to pull them and it's information. In Titan Quest, you don't need much detailed information. You kind of just need to know where you're going. So a map like this with just basically if you click on here, it's Hellas, it will kind of show you where it is. You just need to know that. So the map is really simple. Assassin's Brotherhood, it's overcrowded because you need to go to every nook and cranny and find every secret, and they really want you to not be lost, as you can see. That's really showed in the game Shadow of Rome. Every time you kind of move to a bigger location, so if you move from Circus Maximus to go to the Colosseum, you kind of go through this very beautiful map, but it's kind of just to break down the chapter of the story. It's not really used as a gameplay thing. Well, like this ones, when you're more actually gaming and trying to go where you're supposed to go, because it's a lot of infiltration, you have a more detailed map, but it's also more simple in its aesthetic because it needs to be understandable really quickly. And now I'd like to talk very briefly about the names you can find in map, especially in strategy game, because I find it's quite funny. If you look at the map, so this is supposed to be ancient Gauls just before the conquest. And the names are a bit all over the place. Some of them were supposed to be bigger regions. Some of them are barely used. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Similarly for Northern Africa, when you have a Syrian region, and then you have Cyrenaica for whatever reason. It's probably because they wanted, Libya also seems interesting because the name was not used yet. I think it's because they want people to kind of know where they are. So Libya is well known, so they kind of get that it's there now. And why did they separate those two? I think it's mostly because they wanted not to have like a big region in the middle, like kind of have the same size as the others. That's my guess. But even in Battle of Olympus, you have Arcadia, Argolis, Laconia, great. And then you have Peloponnese, which Peloponnese is all of this. So it's a bit of like, why is it the same, on the same level as the others? Again, I think it's just because they wanted the name to be there so players can recognize them. But the topography in general is quite good. For Greece, you kind of recognize it straight away. The islands are not. Thessaly as well is like weirdly missing here, but like the islands are somewhere there. But usually the main Greece, the mainland is quite good in terms of topography because people kind of know it and recognize it. Even in this one, it's a very old game, 88, but you can tell that you can recognize Greece. Even in Europe, it's quite recognizable in general. What's changed, obviously, is the size of cities. It's always bigger in game than it is in real life. I mean, obviously, for strategy game, because once you conquer a city, you conquer all of the territories. So kind of this land, all of the territories, the countryside is not that important for the gameplay. So you need to see the city bigger to kind of like just because that's what you're playing. Similarly, for Assassin's Creed, they don't want, I think, the travel time between interesting place to be too long. So traveling through the countryside is fun for a while, but most of the quests happen in the cities of Athens, for example. So you just want Athens to be bigger. Yay. Coming back. Yep, should work. Yay. So yeah, you can see compared to Attica, the city of Athens. So again, this is during the Peloponnesian War. It's bigger than what it was supposed to be. And even inside of Athens, the Acropolis is bigger. Yay. Now I know exactly where to go. I don't even have to think. Yeah. Okay. So you can tell here, yeah, that the Acropolis in ancient Greece was didn't take as much space as it is in the game. Again, because it's the residential, for example, the residential habitation are not as interesting for the players. So they kind of just condense them, even delete some of the neighborhood that they don't really like, and just obviously give the emphasis on where the players wants to go. And that also goes with the centrality of maps. Usually cities are quite central, or at least one thing in the city is central. So even in Zelda, the central part is the castle where the main boss is. Similarly in Assassin's Creed, so you have the kind of the Roman ruins at the center of the map ish, where most of the quests happen. They kind of in this diagonal here, if you can see my mouse maybe. And even in games like Rising of Rome, where you don't really have a map, but when you're in Rome, you almost always see the Colosseum in the background. It's almost always there. And in Overwatch, so the main game starts in the middle here, near the Colosseum, and both teams, because it's two teams that fight, they all start in a different Pantheon. Yay. Probably because I think they wanted all of the players to be able to see the building, and then they regroup in the middle towards the Colosseum, sorry. So, they show that the centrality of the landmark is really important in game, and obviously that type of gameplay when two teams fight each other does influence what they'll do with the city of Rome. And so how do you explore the game? So if you play any adventure game, you usually have a quest that you have to do. And the quest in Assassin's Creed take you from here, Kefalonia, and then you go through all of Greece, basically. You go 3 or 4 times to Athens, 3 or 4 times to Sparta, and the rest of the places you see once or twice. At some point, you'll be around here, and you have to go to another island to continue the quest. But probably your level would be too low, so obviously they were smart enough to put all of the islands around here that are exactly in between the level, so that the level you start off, you can just do all of the side quests around the island and go to the next one that you need to. So all of those little things will obviously change how you move in a map. Similarly in Titan Quest, you start here in Helios, you basically go to the north of Greece and then go to Crete. You kind of do the whole tour, not really the island again, they're not seen as important in video games. Another way to explore is obviously by having people interact directly with the decor. So in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you do climb the decor. So you do climb the Colosseum a bunch of times. It's also where a lot of the main quests happen. And in Zelda, if you see those big statues and you can climb them, I guarantee you that most of the player will go and climb the statue to see what's on top, because they usually will put a reward. Similarly, you can do side quests. Interestingly, in Assassin's Creed Origin, you have a quest where people are getting really sick. So you're trying to understand what happened and figure out that one of the merchants is poisoning the food. And why so? Well, first you learn that the farms that look really prosperous are Greek. The Greeks pay lower taxes, so they prosper. And then you learn that Egyptian farmers are slowly forced from the land. How so? Well, once they die, the Greek take the land. And so the merchant was poisoning the people to take over the land. And it's the appropriation of land during the Ptolemaic era of Egypt was actually a big topic, obviously, at the time, and games don't really have time to explore it in the main quest of the game. So they kind of use side quests, for example, to explore those things a bit further. So some of the side quests are really interesting, and some of them become even sometimes more famous than the main quest in itself. Similarly, in the game, to show the colonization of Cyrenaica by the Roman, you have, for example, an aqueduct that's being built. And so you kind of understand that the land is changing, even if you don't really see it yourself. So how to make it also interesting? Obviously, names. If you see Colosseum ruins, I don't know you, but I will go and see what it is. So people will kind of want to see what's that about. Having, like, obviously, those kind of marker will also be like, oh, I want to see what this is. And then another thing is that in a lot of RPG games, again, when you have a big map, you have those points that you have to unlock. And once you unlock those points, you can travel back and forth by teleporting. So you don't have to redo all of the travel that you just did. In Assassin's Creed, they're called the Eagle Point. And basically, once you unlock it, you have a very nice view of the city. And it unlocks the map, so telling you where to find treasures, but also what's the exact layout that you can see in here. Thank you. Move. Okay. For example, in Immortal Phoenix Rising, this is called the Fog of War. So all of this region, you don't know what's happening. So you need to go, unlock the point, and then you know what's happening and have all of the secret that you want to explore. So those kind of little things really make the player pay attention to the decor, because he has to find those little, we call them a fast travel point. So you have to find them and obviously pay attention to the decor, because as you could see, they're usually on top of high building or statues most of the time. Another incentive to explore is by having collectibles, the thing that the player can collect. My favorite one is in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, where you have to go to the lairs of Romulus, which are the lair of a secret society that worship Romulus. And if you do them all, you win the armor of Brutus. I don't know if it was his armor, but it's how it's called. And they are all located in the Roman ruins of the city, except one that's in the Vatican. I think for obvious reason, it does ring a conspiracy, I guess. So you can see it in the Colosseum. I think this is the Termer, and etc. You also can complete databases and codex in games. So the more you explore, the more you gather information. This is the one in Hades. You also can collect armor and what we call cosmetics, so things that won't really change the gameplay. They don't really have any added value, but they look good, so you might want to collect them. They are here, okay. And the most game where you have to do, like the whole principle of the game is to build your collection, is obviously Pokemon. If you want those little unknown Pokemon that are shaped like ancient writings, you find them usually in the ruins. So, it's like this little thing that are like, make people want to explore the ruins and like find all of the unknown Pokemon. Another way, obviously, to change the background of your game, in Rising of Rome is set in ancient Rome, but it could be boring if you only stay in the same kind of decor. So you go to York, where it's basically dark forest and rouge and dark things. And then you go back to Rome and it's like blue skies, white marbles. So those kind of little things to kind of make the player don't feel like it's the same background for hours. Similarly, in Titan Quest, you start in Greece, white marbles, temples, and then you go to China, very different color, very different architecture. Now, I'll quickly go over changes in the game space because I'm still writing the chapter, so if you have any remark, please feel free. In the narration, you have changes. So this is the siege of Alexandria in Assassin's Creed Origin. You can see the city is on fire, everything is changing. But when that event is finished, when you finish quest, it goes back to where it was before, so you don't really see a change. That's probably because they want player to be able to go back and forth and like to not feel like they miss out on the city if they didn't do it before doing the quest. So like in some games, the changes are only kind of superficial. Similarly, in Rising of Rome, where the city is all in battle, by the end of the game, it's restored brand new. But that's also because the idea of Rising of Rome is very similar to Gladiator. You combat a tyrannical emperor to restore Rome to its former glory. that's also happening in different game. Immortal Phoenix Rising is the same. You're in the Golden Isles, and this used to be a hotspot for the whole Highlands. Supposed to be beautiful, and at the end of the game, the Highland looks beautiful once again. Yes, some also dichotomy into what you can break in games as a player, not only in the narration. Vases and pots are a running gag. You can always break them, and you can find rewards in those. Same for supplies. For example, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it kind of helps if you burn Athenian supply, you'll help Sparta with the war, and inversely. So like this is like a nice little mechanic. In Hades, for example, breaking the pillars and vase actually does damage to the enemies, so it also can be useful. But obviously, you will never break the Colosseum. You will never break the Parthenon. You can only break those little material culture things that people won't think about. You can also break things when you do puzzle games. So in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you go into the Domus Aurea, so the Golden Palace of Neros, where you kind of have to find how to go to the next level to kind of find like the rewards. So to do that, you have to understand that you need to pull all of this lever that will put the water. Come on, you can do it. Thank you. Here, and at some point it will break. So the game space will literally change, and you can go down and continue your quest. And this, I think it stays if you go back. Also, why would you go back? Because once you got the reward, there's kind of nothing to do there, but you can. Okay. Another way to change the game space is in games where it's the whole point of the game. Caesar, you have to build a city, so you're going to change the city. You're going to make it efficient. You need to make it aesthetically pleasing, and that's actually quite interesting. Obviously, there's like a whole need to use decoration, have small trees, standing statue, chariot statue, whatever you want. And it's like the whole game is to change even the smallest things. In a strategy game where you have to battle, having buildings brings you bonus. So in Rome Total War, you can build obviously some military building, or again, the Colosseum if you want people to be happier and not revolt in the city. Civilization 6, if you, for example, discover colonialism, then you can discover natural history and have an archaeologist that will bring you culture punch, and you can win by having the highest culture score. And those games do follow quite a very linear view of history. You go from ancient era to the modern era. There is no, everything is linear. There is no going back. There is no entrenchment. It's very linear. And you can literally see it in the game. Age of Empire, at the beginning of your game, you have grasses, 3 random people, and a few scraps. And then you have, once you go through the game, you have a whole city that's functioning, hopefully. Similarly, in Rome Total War, it's not as detailed in the city, but you can see that you don't really have a lot of the territory. You only have Italy. And then after a few hours in the game, you might have, quite a bit more, etc. And so all of those lovely words to show you that in video game, when you combine images with the narrative of the game, if it's not a narrative game, some games are not, and also with the gameplay, so the way the game needs to be played, it will show you that it's kind of is changing the way people perceive antiquity in some ways. For example, the Colosseum and the ruins are kind of having their own little almost revival in the games, but the previous traditions are everywhere. As you could see, mythology is everywhere. You always have the idea of a tyrannical ruler. Gladiator is still very present in games that are set in the Roman Empire. That's still there. The reception of antiquity will also change a lot depending on the genre of the game, the way it's played. As you could see, in hero-based game, if you play in the Roman Empire, you're more likely to have gladiatorial combat. But if you're in strategy game, it's all about the military and the efficiency of the city. There's also something that's very important is the term authenticity. It's not accuracy, it's what looks like how it was, so what people expect. So if you don't have a Colosseum in the Roman Empire, they will say, well, you're missing something very big, even if you know that it was not there at the time. That doesn't really matter. And obviously, entertainment. I don't talk about serious games, so games where they help to make you learn. I talk about games that are made for entertainment, and they also have to sell, and all of these things do come obviously in play when they're making the game. But they do again create their own meaning, symbolism, or like sometimes just make them even bigger than they used to be. And so thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. How much better? Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for the very interesting paper. It's very lovely to learn more about your own project. Do we have any comments in the chat? Would we see them right now, Gabby?
There's no yet. I'll put it.
So there's none yet. Okay. Well, I have one question for you to begin this kind of period. So you mentioned at the very beginning of your talk that you are using a software to kind of annotate the games. For example, here we can see that we have every temples in the 100 games that you're using. And so what kind of software are you using? How does it really kind of change the way that you are seeing the games, and how do you really annotate them?
No, I use a software that's really used in social science, especially when I do interview. So it's mostly done for text, but not integrate images. So it's only still images, which is one of the problem I have, is that game changes and I usually have still images. So I use a lot of YouTube video myself, but obviously I can't put YouTube video in my thesis.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, I do a lot of before and after. So this one is called Qualcoder. It's a free one. I know the University of London has access to NVivo, which is like the better one. But they usually use it for interview. So same as me, when they see interesting theme, they will like annotate them and then go forward. But yeah, the problem is I still images, unfortunately.
It's okay. Well, it's
unfortunately for me, yes,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's still better than nothing. And
it is better than nothing.
Yeah.
I used to have just a word page with all of the images next to each other, so I can kind of see them as one. It was not really good.
Yeah, I guess it's much more difficult to just go through a Word documents with endless images and some kind
and
of.
Here I can just say, oh, every image is when I said there was a temple. I click technology.
Thank you. And I also had a second question. You really explain at length how the aesthetics of the games were really used, and how, for example, ruins were pictured differently across different kind of games and through time also. So how did you spot any difference in kind of how do Western companies and maybe more Southeastern Asian companies really show and pictures like Greek antiquity or Roman antiquity? Is there differences, or is it pretty similar?
Yeah, you would think so, but not exactly. I think Western games, so European American game, they are more focused on historical accuracy in terms of like they do games that are set in the historical era. But there is, what was the game? Shadow of Rome, so the game where they're in Rome after Julius Caesar. It's a Japanese game. So there are also Japanese games that do go into the historical era, less so, obviously, because it's not as much in their curriculum. It's not, they don't see Roman ruins every day when they wake up. When like someone that lives in Rome might see. So there are less games set in a historical period, but they are present. But also you have Western games that also use them as just decoration. So there's not as much a difference as you would expect. It's mostly that they don't do the same type of games. That's it, but not as much. But you do have historical Roman game like Greek mythology game that was made by a Japanese company. Kid Icarus was one of the first. It's like a fantasy game, like very Greco-Roman setting, and it's Nintendo. So.
Thank you. Oh,
I can't read them.
Sorry. Questions online.
Emperor to Rome. And when you look at them up,
can be different depending on who you play.
Oh no, I don't even know the game. I think that's interesting. That's actually really interesting. I need to write down. Yeah, because usually games that are set in like strategy games that don't usually change province name just so that players are not lost. So that's really interesting. I know that, for example, Total War has modes, so player made a game in the game, like modification that do for more accuracy stuff. So I would guess that the game might not be a mode, but like I know that Roman Empire has a lot of people that really like to be really accurate. So I wouldn't be surprised. But that's really interesting. Thank you for the recommendation.
We have something else.
Someone mentions that paradox games are all historical.
Yes, they are.
Crusader Kings and
Yes, yeah. Imperator Rome, I didn't know, that's very interesting. Yeah, Crusader King is interesting. It's just that I have to do a choice. I can't talk about anything, importantly.
Yeah, I guess when you have a sample of only 100 games, you really do
Yes.
have to pick them
Yeah, I
individually.
only have 3 years.
Yeah.
So, importantly.
Maybe a postdoc, we don't know.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Hire me. Yeah.
There are more questions in the chat. If someone wants to-
I actually have a question for you. Thanks, Sarah. It's always super fascinating to hear your project and your progress. And I was intrigued to hear more about plots and how your games engage with mythology and if they are faithful to the literary version of classical works or if they go into different directions.
For historical game, they can't, because like if you know exactly how the story is going to end, where's the player agency? So Assassin's Creed, they always do like kind of a side history and then you interact with the event without really changing them. It's kind of the way they do. But mythology is really interesting. Most of the game used to just see it as a fantasy bestiary. So like they just picked what they wanted. One very interesting game was Hades. So it's an action game, it's a roguelike. So you start in the underworld and then you have to try to go to the surface and you're going to fail. So you're going to go back to the beginning, but a bit stronger and try to go farther and farther away as you get stronger and stronger. And you would think that those games don't have plots because how can you have a plot when you always start back? So they play on the idea of obviously because so Zagreus is the son of Hades, so he's a god, so he can't die. That's why he remembers everything and gets stronger. And the story progress. And really in this game, they are so I can't, my side never works, so maybe not. But the way they represent divinity is very modern. So you have like an Athena with a black skin. You have like all of those characters are very different. I think Hephaestus is in a wheelchair, very modern. But like when you read the codex, when you read the dialogue, it's actually really clever. They play with things that sometimes I even didn't know. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. I went look it up and I was like, oh, it's actually an accurate thing. So sometimes they play in that way. That's very interesting. But yeah, most of the time it's just Medusa looks good. Let's have 15 of hers and like her. It's fun.
Your parallels between, I'm not sure if this question is, but your parallels between science fiction, fantasy, and classical antiquity are as game settings are really interesting because I think when classical antiquity is used in fiction or entertainment, generally films, novels, games, it's often used as a sort of fantastic setting, right? Rather than you said exactly this already, and I was going to add something to it, but I've just forgotten. Yeah, if I remember it,
it might come back.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even in games, because even if a plague tale is you're in medieval France, it's a plague, and then you learn that it's because of your little brother that it's actually, I think, the parasite or something from ancient Rome, and it's always this kind of magical thing when it's used in classical almost. Yeah.
But then the point I was going to make was about the fact that both fictional setting, science fictional setting, futuristic or a fantasy magical past setting, or a historical setting in a world that's different enough from our own, they're all used to sort of alienate the setting and therefore make it sort of exciting in a way that's very sort of escapist.
Yes.
So I think it's not a surprise that people who read science fiction and fantasy also read historical fiction set in Greece and Rome. It's a very similar pattern. And one of the things, the reason I thought of that was because you talked about these sort of very sort of obscure bits of research that find their way into these games. And that, I think, is also not a surprise, given that people who are into science fiction and fantasy and people who are into historical games, classical games, are huge nerds.
Mhm.
Oh, yes.
They do all that research.
Yes, they are.
Not in order to do scholarship, but just because they like
Yes.
reading those skills.
Yeah,
So
I
they
think it's also why classical reception is so big compared to other type of historical reception. It's really big, and also why in like video game historical reception is, I think, like the three bigger will be the World Wars, medieval medieval fantasy, medieval setting, and obviously the classics is because they're nerds. Fair enough.
We do have another question. Yeah.
So early on, you mentioned that classical environments engaged to be mostly plain white marble. Over time, it's caught up with the scholarship. Color started to appear more. What do you think will change next in video games so that it match our current understanding of the classical world?
Ooh, I'm very bad at predicting things. So I don't know. I think the fact that Hades worked so well shows that you can do things that are very interesting with classical antiquity, like making it more modern, also more inclusive maybe in some ways, while also having a mythology that's actually maybe the most accurate you can see in a lot of games. So I think like this kind of maybe going farther away from having something that looks accurate, but actually maybe more feel, that'd be interesting. But again, I'm very bad at predicting things, so don't quote me.
Are there any more questions in the room?
Quite interested by that statue of Odin.
Oh,
In white marble. So like, if you come across any kind of like similar, like kind of anachronisms, or is that something that you potentially predict? Like, I don't know if it was going to be some kind of a game, some kind of space age game potentially, but one that imagines maybe an extraterrestrial culture using these kinds of classical visual tropes. I don't know.
Yeah, there are mythologies in games usually mixed. Like there's like in Titan Quest as well, you go to ancient Greece, then you go to Egypt, then you go to China, and then I think you go to the north and you see Odin. So even if Age of Mythology, they're usually mixed. But yeah, and to go for like science fiction, I think like all of those TV shows like Stargate, where they would go to like different planets, and sometimes they were really reminiscent. I think that's also something that's really starting to come back in a way. You probably haven't because I know you, but Outer World is a great game when you explore the galaxy and you have 20 minutes and then you die and you restart with all of your information and you kind of learn more about the past and why that previous civilization passed away. And the way they use the ruins of the civilization is so interesting. They use something from ancient like Rome in a way, and then they will use all the civilization, kind of mix them. I think that's so interesting. That is less, formatted. You can find that. But yeah, no, the audience touch is great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Very good.
Yes, you're in Rome and Egypt. Great statue.
Great. Well, Kevin, did you want to say something?
I had a question. This one really is a question about your comment you made about ruins, the use of ruins as part of this aesthetic. And you talked about. I'm simplifying to draw out the bits that I thought cool. That you talk about sometimes the darker vibes that ruins bring. That people say these ruins are creepy. That in a sense they feel haunted. And the way they're used, maybe in a more positive way, to indicate that this is a world which is very old. There are previous civilizations there. Do you think there's a pattern there between a sort of positive and negative representation of ruins there, or have I just invented that with my sort of oversimplifying your?
No, I think there is. It's not always exclusory. In Zelda, I think they're used a bit both ways at the same times. Because I think when we see ruins, they look really beautiful and really grand, but they can also be a bit creepy because they're really grand and sometimes there is nothing around. So I think it kind of plays well on both. It's interesting that some historical games use it very differently. Assassin's Creed is quite smart for that they try to look at what the people would think of what they see. So like the NPCs, so the non-playable character, will have lines that, like I think the one on Vikings being like, oh, these are probably giants, is actually something that was found in a chronic. So like the fact that like the dichotomy exists, I think it's also to kind of look at other people. But yes, then when they're using a very darker vibe, it's usually either because it's a darker game. Also, Plague Tale is not a very happy game, and so they kind of use it to really emphasize the darker part. When Zelda, even though there was some darker part, it's still quite whimsical. I think they use more. Like, I don't think they're scary in Pokemon. I can't remember. I don't think
They're
they're
scary Pokemon. But
Yes, but I don't think the ruins are
and so
scary.
because there's scary Pokemon, there are scary settings too. But
Yeah,
those
but-
are very isolated.
Yeah, so I think they're more in the good cave.
Yeah.
Big, more than in the ruins. Yeah, the ruins is mostly you find ancient writings and legends.
There's another question on the chat.
You mentioned earlier how some of the god type strategy games that show like a linear concept of time. Is this consistent across all the games that you've encountered? This is a follow-up to the same question. Are there any video games that rely on a more cyclical idea of time?
So I'm not an expert on strategy game because I personally don't really play those much. They're really fun, but I'm with them. I don't think in strategy game there is. I think it's because you have to build. I think it would be a bit hard. It would be really interesting to see someone try. There are some more cyclical idea like the roguelite, and I think that Hades really plays on it. But then usually no. I think it's mostly because they kind of want you to like the character to progress. So I think they're a bit afraid. There are some games like Outer Wild, Hades that the whole principle of the gameplay is that you like go back and forth in time, but not really. But that would be really cool to see something that's more cyclical. I guess maybe in Assassin's Creed you have that because you have the ancient, very technological advanced civilization, and obviously you play as either a modern character, so in a modern world, and then you go into this machine and you go back in time. So obviously you're going to go like to more technology. So I guess I don't know, it could be a parallel there, but it's a bit of a stretch on my part.
I had one thing. Just you talking about. Thank you for the amazing presentation. About Assassin's Creed Valhalla and the ruins there. I just remembered, I've played it quite a few times through. That there's that guy in the base in your kind of Ravensthorpe in the Viking base.
The settlement
Who's called in the settlement, called Octavian.
Really?
And he's the like guy that you take the Roman artifacts to.
Oh yes.
And then he takes them, and then he gives you kind of decorations you can use in your settlement. So
Yes.
Kind of like Romanizing.
Yes, those Roman artifacts.
Yeah.
They find in ruins. Oh yeah, I don't
And
remember
you bring
his
them
name.
back to this guy who like kind of cosplays as a Roman. He wears like a toga, and he's quite sort of comical.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
he has a special place in the base.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and if anyone has any idea, because in this game the Roman artifacts are represented on the map with like kind of a mask, and I don't know why. So if anyone knows why, feel free. But I don't know. Kinda for Romans, it feels a bit. I don't know.
Good question. Yeah, I think I know someone in Montreal from
And you can
Ubisoft.
ask why did you?
So if
It's a random question,
Yeah.
but I'm like, why not?
yeah, why not? I mean,
No,
it's clearly they made a decision for something to appeal you to go there.
Yes, maybe it looks mysterious. I
I
don't
do
know.
that in the sort of Far Cry games as well.
Oh.
They use the same mask.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because they don't use it. Oh well. Ask them.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I've got a question because I'm also the fan of Hades, and that's why I'm here. And I played Hades 1 and Hades 2, and I can see like some similarity and differences between the map. Because, for example, in Hades 2, in the fourth part of the hell, I think I can go back the same setting of Hades 1. So my question is, do you have some interesting idea in the differences and the remediation of the map in the same game, even though it's the different version of the same game? For example, Zelda is also the same.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, I tried to look for it, but it's hard to find how the map changed. I think it's mostly due to technological change for like the franchise, or like the Zelda when they switched to more open world.
Yeah.
Or went back to open world, maybe would be a better. Yeah, Hades 2 is a great game as well. And Hades 2 was interesting is that they add another layer of perception with the witchy part. So you also have like more of the witches, so the dark forest and all of the cauldron and Hecates and. So yeah, no, that's something I really want to look at. I don't have time because I don't have time. I try to do it a bit for the franchise I have. So, for example, for the Pokemon, I'll try to look a bit, but it's really hard to find. Except that they have the same name, so like the Kronos Temple. Go. That's a bit Greek or Roman. It kind of doesn't change, except it looks better. But Hades is one of the only game when you can actually go back to like another game, which is really fun, and also shows, even though the two games still looks amazing, the first one, you can still see the change of the technology, which is really interesting.
We do have another question on the chat, which is on fire.
This was just them pointing out that Hades can be seen as slightly.
Yes, I mean there's still a progression, but yes, it's probably one of the only one that could be seen. But even though the story progress, because you meet the same character, but your dialogue evolves, obviously. So you see them once, and you're like, oh, like there is a great bit between Orpheus and Eurydice. So you see Eurydice, and she's like, oh yeah, Orpheus, like he left me, like whatever. And then you go back to her because you've seen Orpheus before, and you're like, oh, by the way, Orpheus told me to tell you that. And then the story progress, so there's still progression, but yes, it's probably the most cyclical game.
But that has to be how cyclical works in any storytelling or entertainment environment. There's got to be some progress.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
It seems like there's two, in terms of the gameplay, there's two types of games that engage with antiquity. There's ones where antiquity is used as a kind of wallpaper, which is completely incongruous with the gameplay if you're battling zombie hordes or go-karting or catching Pokemon. And then there is the type where the gameplay evokes actual ancient culture, like a gladiatorial battle or war conquest. If you were to pitch a video game where the gameplay is based on an ancient practice that hasn't yet inspired a video game, for example, I don't know, platonic dialogue.
You kind of do it in Assassin's Creed
chariot
Odyssey.
racing, I don't know. Is there one one concept for a video game lying in antiquity that hasn't been exploited yet that you would, if you were under Ubisoft?
To be fair, I think one answer I thought of right away is the Olympic Games. You find them, but not that much. Weirdly, in a way, as I think you don't see them in movies as well. You have a lot of modern Olympic Games. You find them.
Super Mario Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they also have like the Olympic game with Mario, but yeah, that's a great game as well. And you find them a bit in Assassin's Creed, but it's like kind of a node, and you do one quest and bye. I mean, that would be cool. Would I play it? Maybe not. No, Socrates, you kind of find them in Assassin's Creed as well. You talk to Socrates, so you have those skills. They could, ish. I don't know, what would I do? Probably something to do with the Eleusis mysteries, like something like that could be really fun.
Really
like a sect, like religion, or even like Roman religion is barely. Oh, maybe you know what you could do, because making ideas. You know, in the Roman Empire, whenever they conquer like another city and they have another god, they will like take the god for themselves if they win, and then they'll be like praying for the god, and if they win the city, that means the god was on their side. Something like this could be so fun. Like you collecting Pokemon gods.
Collecting gods. Very Roman.
Creating your own gods.
You mentioned, I think, that some of the gladiator games have the structure of a sport game. So, like managing a football team, you're managing a gladiatorial arena or something. Are there other games that are sort of in the sort of sport game genre that have historical, not necessarily classical, but have historical games in them that are not just?
There are chariot races as well.
Okay.
But gladiatorial and chariot races are not the most popular type of game that's been done in antiquity. They exist. Are they good? Not my type, so I won't talk. If you play the fighting game, which I guess kind of are sport games, so not managing but actually fighting, in Tekken, Mortal Kombat, you do have some. So is in Tekken is in the real world. So when you go to Greece, you have Acropolis, Mortal Kombat, or I think the last Street Fighter at some point you're in an arena, like a Roman arena with like Spartan warriors, or again a mix of things. So that exists. I'm thinking of others. No, but it would be really fun. Yeah.
There must be a game
Yeah.
Knowing the number of games out there, there must be a game where you play that you manage the whole Olympic Games or something.
Yeah, it's probably if you go on
modern-
Steam and in like there's probably
you
is.
could transpose that to
Yes.
only using games that were ancient games,
Yes.
using
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sort of rules that were in the ancient games, the settings, the
Yeah.
appearance,
Yeah, that'd be
you
fun.
know, the prizes that they get and that sort of thing. So you could transpose that.
Yes, clearly, and most of the sport game are basically just, as you said, they're just like virtual wallpaper of antiquity and go on. Similarly for Caesar, it's SimCity with just ancient-looking building. There is nothing different.
Yeah.
You don't have slavery, like all of those things that made ancient world don't exist because they just dispose it. So that exists. Yeah, that'd be really fun. There's probably one guy that did it. If you go on Steam, and maybe probably one that I don't know about. That's for sure. No, that'd be super interesting, especially because I think one of the reasons the Olympic Games are not as represented is because people, well, they only like most people think of the modern ones. They don't know what sports there were before, and especially all the singing part, art part might seems a bit foreign. The naked part could play a game, but I think that's easily redeemable. And also there is no celebrity like star. Because for Gladiator, you think of Spartacus, or no, obviously of Maximus from Gladiator. But ancient Olympics, it's a bit more, well, there were peoples. So I think that missing a star. But yeah, so I think that simulation could actually. Yes, exactly. But I think doing more simulation thing kind of like people don't need to know the thing to enjoy it. So that would be like probably a way to kind of introduce it to people. That'd be really fun.
I think it's got legs. We're never going to get it made.
There's probably someone that did it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if there's no more question in the chat or either in the room, I'd like to thank again Sarah for incredible talk. See you again in a week on Friday 19, 2026 for the next session of the Digital Classicist Seminar. And thank you everyone.
Thank you.